Hello and welcome back to my channel and welcome to Iceland. This is going to be the first in a three-part series about Iceland. So we just finished our epic 8-day road trip around Iceland. So we actually did the entire ring road and we did it a little bit differently to how most people do it. So we did clockwise, north, east, south, and then back to Reykjavik. And we saw some incredible waterfalls, of course, some incredible rivers, all kinds of things. And so what I'm actually going to be doing in today's video is I'm actually going to be reading from my journal that I've been keeping for the trip. So it's going to be a little bit of a combination of a bit of storytelling, as well as I'll be putting in some visuals of kind of our experience so that you can really, the idea behind it is for you to really get a taste of what being in Iceland is actually like. And one side note is, I know there's drilling and I was going to wait for the drilling to stop, but I just know that I'm not going to record this video if I don't just do it, if I don't just get it done before I go home. So sorry about the drilling. I'll probably edit out most of it, but for the stuff that you hear, I'm sorry. Okay, so another side note as well is that so this video is mainly just going to focus on the experiences, what we would recommend, why not. I'm actually creating a whole other video that's going into a lot of depth about budgeting, about what we spent, what I would do differently if I were to do this again, so that you can kind of have a clearer budget, as well as a separate video about kind of a week in the life here in Reykjavik, about kind of working, digital nomad life, and what that would look like as well. Let's get started with the story. I hope you're nice and cozy. Hope you got yourself a nice tea or coffee, and we're gonna get stuck in. Day one. We arrived at about 6:30 p.m. at Keflavik Airport. We were quite tired from our journey, but very excited to be here. We met the lady from the van company, headed over in the car to the office to pick up the van. Once we got there, we were able to collect our new little home for the week. It was a very cute little Renault van, and it's been converted into a camper with a mattress in the back and everything one could need. Cozy pillows, a sleeping bag, a little gas hob. And so as soon as we had done the checks, we hit the road. We drove for about 2 hours and progressively got more tired and a little grumpy along the way. The weather was constantly changing. 1 minute it was sunny and the next it was pelting rain. We went through a very long underground tunnel and I was a little afraid because of my claustrophobia. But I imagined that we were just going through a tunnel above ground and that made me feel a little better. We continued along the long, windy roads until we finally reached Varmaland campsite, which is situated just off the main road. It's essentially a field with a toilet in the middle. By this point, we were absolutely starving, so we cooked ourselves some Cajun pasta from one of the freeze-dried bags of food that we had brought with us. While we were eating our dinner, a man came to the door and took payment with a little card machine. He was really jolly, and I found the whole situation quite amusing as I was hanging through the cabin to pay with my bank card. After dinner, Ruud did the washing up, obviously, and I got ready for bed. We were very grateful to find that both bathrooms were heated by a little radiator, which made brushing our teeth and going for a pee very pleasant. Finally, we both snuggled up in our warm, fuzzy sleeping bags. It was about 11 p.m, but still fully light out. We both looked at the map and visualized what we would like to do tomorrow, and then promptly passed out and slept very well. Day two. I woke up around 6:45. I had slept really well and needed to pee so badly, but Ruud was blissfully snoring away like a foghorn, and I didn't have the heart to disturb him. So I waited for about an hour until he woke up. We then made ourselves some breakfast, which consisted of coffee made by Ruud and a smoothie made by me, which was made of protein powder and yogurt, which we bought yesterday at the gas station, and some water. It wasn't at all bad. We then organised our things a little better for easy access before brushing our teeth and getting ready to hit the road for another day of adventures. We first drove around 20 minutes to a little geyser where the water bubbled at 100 Celsius. When we arrived in the parking lot, a grey cat came to greet us. He was very affectionate. We found a friend! We found a friend! Mr. Floofles! As we walked around the hot springs, the sultry steam warmed our faces. But we are going to check out the hot spring. Danger. Smells of fart. Delightful. It reminded me of hard-boiled eggs and that random sulfur Himalayan salt that Mum bought once that we all said smelled of fart. Yeah, it's boiling apparently. We then continued on our journey to the first waterfall of the day. This one was located up a little dirt track. The walk was about 25 minutes and the experience was truly spectacular. We walked through the fields past a beautiful A-line house and it's absolutely freezing. It's about 4 degrees. I'm very grateful that I bought my 2 jackets so that I can stay warm and cozy, and jumped over this nice little fence. We then walked down the windy path until we reached the waterfall. I felt so happy as the sun kissed our faces and we looked at the water pouring down the hill. We then walked back and had lunch in the back of the van. We ate the freeze-dried korma and sat at the back ledge and watched the little sheep in the field. We then drove to, I'm not going to try and pronounce this, I'll just put it on the screen, a very cool rock that just jots out into the ocean and looks like a funky creature. Rude drove the van confidently. It was his very first time with the van and on the right side of the road. We turned off onto this gravel road, which was still being made by a truck. Rude attempted to overtake, but he was a little too far to the right and we ended up off the road hanging over the ditch. Oops. I was pissed, but I did my best to remain calm. We sat there for a moment before Rude got out of the car. A man came and asked if we needed any assistance and Rude said, "I'm not sure." They discussed trying to get a cable to pull us out. Meanwhile, I was thinking, I hope this isn't the end of our honeymoon and a massive bill. The man suggested that we pull the wheel as far to the left as possible and we try to accelerate out of the ditch. I attempted it and it worked. Rude asked if I didn't want him to drive and I said, maybe let's give it a little break from you driving for just a little bit. We laughed about it the rest of the way to the destination. I drove us to the gas station where we filled up with diesel. There was a sweet woman helping a blind man find his way across the car park to the footpath. It reminded me that humanity can be so beautiful. We stopped for a quick pee, then Rude drove us to the Bonus supermarket. The Bonus was really interesting. It reminded me a little of a bulk store you use for professional kitchens. They had walk-in fridges where they stored the meats and veggies. By this point, we were getting pretty peckish, so we munched on some crisps as we drove to the campsite, or so we thought. We went through a massive tunnel that was over 7.5 kilometers long. It felt like being in that weird series called Silo. We then drove for a further 20 minutes until we arrived at another Godafoss. I must have accidentally put the wrong destination into the GPS. We were starving, so we ate a dinner in the back of the van and took a stroll to see the spectacular waterfall. It was massive and the water was milky white. We walked along either side and took tons of pictures and videos. We drove back to the campsite and pitched up for the night. This cute little girl with blonde plaits came around to take our payment via credit card. We then had a very warm shower and visualized our day for tomorrow. Day 3. We woke up in the morning to cloudy skies and cold air. We enjoyed the kettle and had a hot coffee and smoothie. The kitchen was really warm and cozy.
So today we were supposed to go whale watching, but unfortunately the sea conditions are too rough to go, which is very sad, but we're gonna see if we can go whale watching in Reykjavik instead. Say hi, Reed.
Hello.
And today instead we're going to go and have a bath in the hot springs, and then we are going to go to Dettifoss, which is it's the most powerful waterfall in the entirety of Europe. And then we're going to go to a really, really cool canyon, which I cannot pronounce the name of, but we'll put on the screen. And that is the plan for today.
We hit the road for Mývatn Hot Springs. The drive was about an hour and it progressively got colder and colder. It was so cold that the rain became snow. I began to doubt our decision to go to the hot springs because I was worried that it would be too cold. We finally arrived at Mývatn and waited at the car park for the baths to open. Once they did, it looked like Woodstock. Over 10 people ran to the door. We got in, got changed, and swiftly went on a quest for the warmest part of the pool.
So
Hi.
this is pretty nice, isn't it?
It's very warm.
Oh, so
It's 2 degrees outside.
literally snowing.
After 1.5 hours of shriveling, we came out of the water and drove to Dettifoss. Ruud drove us to the waterfall, and on the way we stopped to repack the van. Unfortunately, we didn't realise that the place we stopped was in fact a paid parking. Dramatic pause. We ended up paying £9 for Ruud to repack the van. I was understandably spicy about this, so gave him the silent treatment for about 60 seconds. We continued on to Dettifoss. The road was super rustic. So rustic, in fact, that we speculated that it might even be an F road. Fortunately, Ruud was able to stay on the road this time. The road was about 29 kilometers of rocky, bumpy, muddy, gravelly crap. The average speed was between 30 to 40 kilometers an hour, so it took us a good 45 minutes to get there from the main road. We were finally arrived at the parking. I was absolutely freezing because it was bloody Baltic. We piled on layers and made the short hike down to the waterfall, which was very beautiful, but very windy and cold. On the walk back to the van, I was so happy we were leaving because my hands were so cold I thought they would fall off. We made the bumpy ride back to the main road. By this point, I was exhausted. The water at Mývatn really took the energy out of us. Op is op. So I was left unsatisfied and cuddled up in the passenger seat. I demanded a tea and then spilled it everywhere. By this point, I was getting PMS symptoms and became rather grumpy. Ruud drove us to our next destination, Stublagill Canyon. The road was I don't know what I've written here. We're just going to go with the road was lovely. There were many twists and turns. We progressively got more and more exhausted, but we persisted because we are persistent mofos. We finally arrived at the car park and made ourselves a quick Thai green curry before the hike down to the canyon. I was very grumpy and kept slipping on the stones. The walk was really pretty though, and I surrendered to the experience. Once we got to the canyon, it was definitely worth it. The canyon is absolutely stunning, right out of a movie. We spent a good bit of time wandering around the canyon and taking loads of pictures before making the hike back to the parking lot and driving back to the main road. We found a guest house nearby and set up for the night. Even though we had already eaten dinner, I was still hungry, so we ordered a grilled cheese and fries. He literally brought us a massive bowl of fries, but we ate them all. We then went back to the van and watched some more Hala before passing out. Hala's a movie that we were watching. It's very good, by the way. Highly recommend.
Hello, and welcome to day 3 or day 4. I can't even remember now. We are still in the north. It was absolutely freezing last night, but we zipped the sleeping bags together. We figured out we could do that on day 3 or day 4. Which was amazing, and it's been raining all night, but we're going to drive for about an hour. There is one more waterfall that we want to see in this part of Iceland before we head down south to Hofen.
The drive to Hengifoss car park was about an hour. The road was windy and lots of little birds flew across the road right in front of our van. After we finished our practice, I went to this cute little food truck and bought us a couple of coffees that we enjoyed on the hike up.
What's happening? You want to push the rug?
Yeah. Come closer.
The walk to the waterfall was a good 45 minutes. We stopped along the way to take tons of photos. I felt so free. We had amazing views of the river, waterfalls and valley. We imagined that it was like Tibet would look like. It rained on and off on the walk up. The path was muddy, and at one point we even walked through a river. When we got to the big waterfall at the end, the rain finally stopped and we were able to enjoy the waterfall to ourselves for a few moments.
The end of the path. Oh wow, look at that. Beautiful. Likewise beautiful. Sunshine! Woo!
It was really special. We then walked back down to the parking where we made ourselves a little lunch out of the back of the van, which was very tasty. And then we continued on to Hofen. Ruud drove for a while and we enjoyed the beautiful scenery, stopping every so often to take pictures. We pulled in at a funny shaped mountain and Ruud got out to take some pictures. I got into the driver's seat and hid so he wouldn't see me. He came back to the driver's seat and looked confused. It was priceless. I drove us the rest of the way to Hofen. During our drive over, we already noticed a substantial change in how the landscape appeared. We saw beautiful green fields, lovely soft rolling hills, and the clouds really seemed to be receding more and more. We also noticed that the temperature steadily got higher and higher. It was almost 14 degrees by the time we actually reached Hofen, which was a very stark change from the 2 degrees we'd had the day before at Mývatn. We arrived in Hofen and found ourselves a campsite just in the entrance of the town. We got ourselves checked into the campsite, and then drove down to this fancy restaurant called Packus. It was such a luxury to eat in a restaurant after days of eating out of the van. We ordered langoustine cooked in butter and tuna, and it was delicious but very rich. We ordered dessert too, which was very rich and very sweet. We were absolutely stuffed by the end of it. We rolled back to the camping and watched TV for the rest of the evening. We were both a little bloated and stinky, so we mutually decided to separate the sleeping bags. After a cozy couple of episodes, we got a great night's sleep. Day 5. We woke up this morning much less freezing than any of the other mornings. I was cozily wrapped up in the sleeping bag, and Rude bought me my coffee and smoothie in bed. He is such an amazing husband. We then enjoyed a nice smoothie and hit the road. First stop was some natural hot tubs. We arrived just before 10 and hopped into the very hot water.
Hot tubs.
It was really lovely. It helped my poor little period belly so much that the pain actually melted away. We stayed for about 30 minutes, enjoying the warm water and great views of the glacier in the background. We got dressed and munched on some pastries that we bought in the supermarket in Hoffen before hitting the road for our next destination, Salon. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. Apologies if not. Where the famous Diamond Beach is located.
The drive was just under an hour, and along the way we had fantastic views of the hills and glaciers.
We pulled into the car park and began with a lovely walk along the glaciers. Rude commented on how peaceful it looked, and he had a massive smile on his face during the entire experience. It makes me so happy to see my beautiful man enjoying some wholesome time. We took tons of pictures of the glaciers and walked all around the edge. We stopped and got some hot beverages at this little food truck. I got a hot chocolate and Rude got a coffee, of course. On the walk back to the car, we spotted a cute little bird singing a song. And several sea lions that reminded me of Khaleesi. They kept dropping their little heads in and out of the water. We got back to the car and crossed the bridge to the other side to check out the Diamond Beach. It was amazing. Big chunks of melting ice all over the beach. As they melted, they sparkled in the light. We walked down the beach and took absolutely shit tons of photos. The air was fresh and cold and the sea looked unsettled, kind of like the Irish Sea looks like after a storm. As we were taking some pictures and videos, we got caught in the water and we laughed as we ran out of the sea. This was the moment when I realized my shoes were fully waterproof. What a fabulous discovery. We walked back to the car and continued our journey to Mullaglijufer Canyon. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. In my opinion, this was the highlight of the trip. We drove down an extremely bumpy gravel road. And found ourselves at the bottom of the canyon. I was feeling grumpy. You might be sensing a trend here. So we had a wee bit of lunch before starting our hike up to the peak of the canyon. As we walked up the canyon, my mind progressively got lighter. The walk was quite a strenuous upward hike up several hills. We stopped along the way to take in the stunning views and catch our breath. There were several points where I felt so exhausted and almost suggested turning back, but we persisted, and it was so very worth it.
Is it nice?
It's epic.
Is it nice? It's pretty nice.
Epic.
Fucking epic. Fucking epic.
Epic, man.
Woo!
It was like walking through a Game of Thrones episode. I was almost expecting some mystic creatures to jump out at us. As we made it to the summit, it began to rain a little. I was so exhausted, but so proud of us for making it this far in life and to the top of the mountain.
We were there! All the way over there!
We were.
Woohoo!
Now we go there.
Yeah, all the way down.
The walk down the mountain was way easier, and I felt this new burst of energy fill my body with the feeling of accomplishment.
Where's the foss? Oh.
There's the boss.
Where's the foss?
There. We were there. Right there.
There he is.
We got back to the car and then drove on to our campsite, which is located in Skaftafell National Park. The sun was shining and we felt so happy to have arrived in warmer weather. It was around 14 degrees Celsius, much warmer than the 2 degrees at Mývatn. As we journey further south and closer to Reykjavik, we see more and more people. I guess more people enjoy the heat. We also noticed that this part of the country seems to be much more catered to tourists. The campsite is very well equipped, but definitely the most expensive one we've stayed at so far, at 5,000 ISK, €34 per night. We enjoyed a wonderfully hot shower. I was especially grateful for this because of my period. We ate a lovely dinner consisting of hot dogs with mustard, pot noodles with spinach and egg. We got to use the washing machine and get a good load of laundry done. Rude kept a close eye on the machine to make sure nobody skipped the queue, while I got very tipsy on half a bottle of wine. You might sense a trend here too. We watched part of a movie called Blackberry about the Blackberry, which was great, and at around 11 p.m. I passed out. Literally, I woke up only when Rude came back with the laundry. I got up like a zombie and went to brush my teeth and a final pee before promptly passing out again until the next morning. Day 6. We woke up to something we hadn't experienced in a long time, being too hot. The sun was blazing down. It was so great to feel it warming our bones. Today we planned to have a little bit of a rest day, so no driving, just chilling at the campsite and going on a couple of hikes in the surrounding area. We ate the usual breakfast of a yummy smoothie and a coffee. I did a workout and some yoga, which felt amazing. Aside from hiking, it's been too cold and too windy for a workout until now. After the workout, I did the dishes. Not sensing a trend here. I think this was the only time I did the dishes of the entire trip. And then sat down to journal a little before continuing on our way. We started with a hike up to Svartifoss, which was about 30 minutes uphill. It was a bit of a workout, but I really noticed that all the effort I've been putting into my fitness this year has been paying off. We got to the waterfall and took some pictures before heading down. What's really interesting about this waterfall
Nice, huh?
Very nice.
What's really interesting about this waterfall is that the columnar basalt has been formed by magma from volcanoes slowly cooling down. It reminded me of the throne in Game of Thrones. We really noticed how much more catered for tourists the south is, with the path, bridges, steps and everything. Once we got back, we enjoyed a curry for lunch and then chilled for a bit. Rude watched some videos and I updated this journal and finished week 7 of the home retreat. Then we headed off for our hike to the glacier. The wind had really picked up, so we bundled up in our jackets. The walk to the glacier was around 20 minutes along a flat path. It reminded me a little of the Netherlands.
What's that? Is it a glacier?
It was super windy. It was almost difficult to walk. When we finally got to the glacier, we took a few pictures before wandering back to the campsite. I had a shower and then we cuddled up in the camper van to watch movies for the rest of the evening. Day 7. We woke up to warm weather. It was around 19 degrees Celsius. Rude went for a quick shower while I reorganized some stuff in the van, and then we hit the road for the glacier kayaking. When we arrived, there was no wind, but the entire glacier was shrouded in clouds. I thought, oh well, at least it's not windy. And I was expecting the weather to stay like that for the whole tour. As soon as we got out on the water, the mist lifted and we had incredible views of the glacier. We were lovely and warm in our dry suits. The glacier was so quiet. The only thing we heard was the odd boat heading its way out to the glacier. Our guide explained that the glacier is about 600 years old, and before that it used to be a forest, which is incredible. It's kind of sad to see these big chunks of ice melting, but it's also such a nice reminder of impermanence. I wonder how glaciers are made. I'm thinking about doing some more research about this because I can't imagine it's just frozen rain, but who knows? Nature is amazing. We took tons of pictures of us in the glaciers and sent really cute picture of us to our family. And my mom said we looked like really fat maggots and Carla said we looked like clogs. Thanks guys. We had a quick lunch in the back of the van before continuing on to the canyon. The walk up was about 10 minutes up a steep slope. It was nice, but honestly nothing special, and it felt very fabricated somehow. We were also starting to feel quite tired by this point, so that might have been part of it.
It's a selfie deterrent.
After the canyon, we drove to this really cool waterfall that you can walk behind.
Sexy! Woo!
The sun was shining and it created this beautiful rainbow effect where the light shone through the spray. This made the whole experience feel so magical.
It's amazing. That's where we're going.
After that, we went to this other little waterfall in a cave, which was very pretty, but to be honest, it was difficult to appreciate it with all the people taking selfies in there. You couldn't really get a nice view. After this, we got very hungry. Again, you might sense a trend. So we headed back to the van for some hot dogs before continuing on to Fludir. At Fludir, we went to this lovely little hot springs that are from this naturally thermal river. They were constructed in the 1800s. We spent over an hour lounging in the water and drinking a beer. We took lots of photos. But then these little biting flies came and we were surrounded, so we went back to the camping. Once we arrived back there, it was completely full. So we just parked at the exit and watched some series on our laptop before falling asleep. Day 8. The next morning, we woke up super early, around 6:30. So we drove on to Gullfoss. It was so cool. Barely anyone was there, and the light of the water was creating rainbows across the falls. We then drove on to Kerrid Crater, where Rude made us a coffee and breakfast. I had my home retreat study session, so I stayed in the van to listen to that. while Ruud explored the crater. The study session was really inspiring. In that moment, I felt so fortunate to have this amazing opportunity to study Dharma. When the session was over, I took a quick peek at the crater before we headed back to Reykjavik. We parked in the city and had a little lunch in this Japanese place before heading out on the water whale watching. This was another highlight of our trip.
You don't see that every day. Unless you're me.
We even saw a whale jumping out of the water. Ruud looked so happy. It was such a gift to see the smile light up his face at seeing the whales in the water. It was warm and the sunlight glittered on the water. This was so much better than freezing our tits off in Husavik. I honestly didn't think it was possible for us to have such an experience in our lifetime. Once we got back to the car, I was feeling totally exhausted, but we still had to drop off the van and pick up the car. So we quickly dropped off our stuff at the Airbnb before driving to the airport. We dropped off the van rather more dusty than we had picked it up. We had driven more than 1,800 kilometers. We really enjoyed being in the van and we're considering buying one in the future for more trips. We picked up our little car and headed back to the Airbnb before making ourselves a quick dinner and going to sleep. So that was the 7-day road trip. I do hope you enjoyed this video as much as we enjoyed making it. I hope it kind of gives you a bit of a taster of what it's like to be in Iceland and for you to experience it. Honestly, I would recommend this trip to anyone. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so that you can be notified of future videos. Like I mentioned, there's going to be 2 more videos in this series. One about budgeting and how you can kind of budget your trip for Iceland and what it kind of cost us to actually do this 7-day road trip and a week here in Reykjavik. And the other one a bit more centered on being a digital nomad and a week in the life of a digital nomad in Reykjavik. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day.